Mike Owens with Inside Fighting, and it's always a pleasure to be joined by Cody Brundage, who returns to action March 1st, facing Julian Marquez, UFC Fight Night. Cody, always a pleasure, my man. How are your emotions ahead of your return?
I'm good, man. It's good to see you. It's like I said, it's been a minute, so I'm excited, and yeah, we're getting close. So you're starting to feel like kind of the nerves, but all good things.
Generally, I see you on fight weeks. The last few, not the Abdul Razak Alhassan one. So it's a shame I can't make it out for this one in Las Vegas in a couple of weeks' time. But I know that you're already in Vegas for getting Youssef Zalal ready for his big matchup against Calvin Kattar. So talk to me a little bit about that and how Youssef's looking in preparation.
Yeah, we got out here Tuesday. Yusuf's looking money. He's on quite the rise. Three fights, three finishes in his return, and he's looked money and good in every single one. And Cater's obviously a step up from some of those guys, but it's a challenge I think we're ready for. And he's trained super hard. He's the hardest worker in the gym, and now he gets to go show it, and make a good amount of money, and all those things are good. So we just gotta get this weight off today, and then go handle business on Saturday.
What's your role on Saturday night in terms of like where are you in terms of the coaching team?
I help Yusuf a lot with his wrestling. And then, he comes with me in 2 weeks, and I think just like the vibe, I feel like
Mm.
we keep each other calm, and that's an important thing. It's important to be grounded and realize, it is what it is, and you need people around you that can help you feel that.
Mm.
Because you're gonna have some crazy thoughts for sure on fight week, and the more you can get back to reality, I think the better. Yusuf is super coachable. It's like a video game when he's in there. He listens super well, but he's also very good everywhere. So it's not. I'm not going to tell him anything in there that's going to win him or lose him the fight. But it's just to remind him some little things, and to keep him calm, and that's my main role. So, like I said, I'm super excited for him, and happy to be on the journey with him too.
Have you moved into a full-time or a part-time coaching role as part of the team at Factory X? Is that did I see that?
Yeah, so after my fight with Razak, I wasn't sure if I was gonna fight again. I was like, if it feels like something I want to do, I will. But I took about 4 months where I was just coaching full time. I still coach. Obviously with this fight, it's a little different. I'm not a full time coach because I got to focus on what I'm doing.
Mm.
But yeah, for about 4 or 5 months there, I was doing full time coaching and deciding, do I want to come back? Do I want to fight again? Um, and then I decided, yeah, I miss it. I'm only 30 years old, which for the middleweight division is pretty young, and I still feel like I got some left in the tank. I just had to make some mental adjustments, give myself a little break, and figure out if I love the sport still. And if I didn't, I wouldn't fight. If after this fight I'm like, man, I don't want to do this shit anymore, I won't do it. And it took a minute to figure that out. But yeah, coaching was good, man. It was cool. It was kept me in the sport, kept me around it, and being like, okay, yeah, I want to get back there. Had I not been coaching, I probably wouldn't have come back to fighting. So it was good. Factory X gave me that opportunity, and I enjoyed it for sure.
Was that the first time you'd ever had those feelings about potentially stepping away from competition?
I think for as long as I did, yeah. I
Mm.
think after my UFC debut, I had those feelings because I just got my daughter's diagnosis, and I was like, man, you got to go get a job with healthcare and figure some stuff out. And there was a lot of stress there. But that was pretty brief. My wife was
Mm.
like, "You're not doing that. You just got to the UFC." I think this one was rough just because I think the head trauma was bad. I had back concussions for like a month, like concussion symptoms, I guess, for like a month after my fight. I would just wake up in the middle of the night, super emotional. My wife's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "I have no idea."
Mm.
Um, and so, I never had any injury problems my whole career, and I've never really had too much head trauma. And so that was scary, and I was like, man, I got to be a dad, and I don't want to lose my brain. I feel like that's a attribute that I'm lucky enough to have. Not all
Mm.
fighters have that. Uh, so it was scary, and then it was also just like I wasn't enjoying what I was doing. I didn't have much joy, and it was because I was kind of putting my joy was in everyone else's hands, right? It was like I want to make my family proud, I want to make my coaches proud, make the team proud. I want to prove all these people wrong, prove some people right, and it was really less about me and more about everything else. And the reason I'm coming back to fighting is I just kind of figured out like, hey man, it's just about me, and I'm
Mm.
I'm not a selfish person, but fighting is selfish, and I'm only doing this because I like to do it.
Mm.
and I love fighting. It's my passion. I'm not worried about proving people right anymore because the people that believe in me and are proud of me are going to be proud of me and they're going to believe in me. And the people that don't, I'm never going to convince them.
Yeah.
So it's just not my prerogative anymore. It's more that I just need to go out and have fun and do the stuff we've worked and that's the only reason I'm doing it. And I think that mindset has made fighting fun again. As fun as it's gonna be. Like it's not always gonna be fun. Fighting isn't a fun thing, I wouldn't say, but as fun as it's gonna be, and really brought some joy back into the sport for me, which has been important.
Well, that's very good to hear. I did want to ask you about the last fight against Abdul Razak Alhassan. I hope you don't mind me asking this question,
No,
because in these situations when a fighter is unable to continue, and let's clarify that unable to continue as a result of somebody else's actions, generally the guy who can't continue gets more flack than the guy who committed the foul or who did something illegal. And I imagine that was probably the case with you, given what I saw online. So talk to me a little bit about that whole experience and what that actually feels like. You've just mentioned some of the side effects, the post side effects, but talk to me a little bit about what going through an experience like that feels like for a fighter.
yeah, it's interesting. There's not many rules in MMA, like very few rules.
Mm,
Uh, and you would think if somebody can't follow the very basic rules in MMA that there would be an issue with that person, not with the person who was infracted upon, so to
yes.
speak. So it's an interesting thing, and you can't really defend yourself from it because people they don't care. They don't want your explanation, right? Like there's this thing going on with Sean Strickland right now, right? Like you see people like he's soft or he's not this guy. Like I can guarantee you, every single fighter in the UFC, every single one, 100%. There's not one in that group that is soft. No one is willingly putting on their underwear and going and fighting in front of millions of people and doing the training necessary to get to that point and putting in all the work that is a soft person,
Mm,
right? Um, Now the other thing is that there's people don't do this sport. So most of the fans, like if you go watch a soccer game or if you go watch a football game, most of the people in the stands have played the sport,
yes.
right? With fighting, no one's really done that. No one's even taken a basic kickboxing class. So they don't even understand what it's like to get punched legally, let alone illegally, right?
Mm,
And some of the rules are changing, right? You can knee a downed opponent now. You can do 12 to 6 elbows. One rule that will never change, I can guarantee will never change, is strikes to the back of the head.
yeah.
It will never change because it's so dangerous and it very quickly can turn into a scary situation. Um, so the flack I got, I had been through it before because the same thing happened in another fight of mine.
Mm,
And it was unfortunate, but again, like I'm not going to change anybody's opinion. If you think that Cody Brundage is a soft ass bitch, like I can't change your opinion. That's what you think. I have 11 fights in the UFC, so I mean, I know I'm not. But I also know that I have enough respect for myself and respect for my family and respect for my coaches that I'm not going to put myself in a situation where like I was out in that Razak fight, right? Like, and I don't know if he put me out with a legal shot and then hit me in the back of the head and made it worse. I haven't really gone back and watched it. That
mm,
could have definitely happened. But at the end of the day, I don't control how the ref stops the fight. And so when it gets stopped and they're like, hey, can you continue? And I can't continue, I'm not going to continue because the fans are like, you need to continue or else you're soft, right? I'm not
yeah.
going to give myself worse concussion. I'm not going to give myself permanent damage for them because they
Mm,
don't give a shit about me, right? So it is what it is. It's difficult. You never really want, that, but and that one was tough too because it was in Denver. My whole family was in the crowd, and
mm,
I think there was some incidents with some of my family and the crowd because they don't know who they're sitting by, right? And so they're
mm,
like, "This guy's a pussy," and then obviously your family's hype, and
yeah.
they're, so that was not good. Uh, I probably wouldn't have my family come to fights again because of things like that.
Mm,
But it is what it is. It was upsetting for sure, but it just kind of, to be honest, you just kind of come to expect it from the fans in this sport. I think the fans in this sport they're great. They're very passionate, but at the same time, they've never done the sport, and they all think they can,
yeah.
right? Like I don't think I can go be Tom Brady. I don't think I can go be an NFL football player.
Hmm.
I love football. I played football my whole life. I got recruited to play college football. I was a good football player. I don't think I could play in the NFL. Every Pretty much every adult man thinks that they can fight, right?
Hmm.
And so when you mix that with alcohol and you mix that with gambling, and then people feel like, well, I could do that shit. It gets easy to be like, man, that guy is a pussy, or I could
Hmm.
whoop that guy or whatever, and they just have no idea. So you just gotta kind of take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, it wasn't the most fun for sure.
No, I can appreciate that, and I appreciate your honesty with that question. I hope you didn't mind me asking that.
No, you're good.
Um, Talking to the future, Julian Marquez, a couple of weeks' time. What do you make of the matchup?
Yeah, I know Julian pretty well. We trained together for about 9 months. So I know his game. I'm pretty familiar with it. He's pretty familiar with my game, and yeah, it's good, man. We're both kind of got our back against the wall, and um, so when the UFC calls and your back's against the wall, you're not saying no. So I like the matchup. We'll just get after it when it comes.
Where do you think you have the advantages in this matchup?
I think I have the advantages everywhere. I don't think there's one spot that I would say Julian's better than me in. Um, Training's training, so I'm not like just basing it off that, but if I tried it when I first watched the film for the fight, I watched it as if I had never trained with him. And like, hey, if they just offered me this opponent and I didn't know the guy, what would I think? And I feel comfortable everywhere. Um, I feel like one thing with Julian is he's not very active, like in terms of like fighting. He fights once a year. I'm the opposite. I took a long break, but I fight a lot, and I think that experience and that time in the cage and dealing with those nerves is important. And I've got a lot more practice doing that than he does. So.
100%. What was the training room like when you trained together? What type of sessions were they? Were they hard sparring round? Was it more lighter technical stuff? What type of stuff did the training look like?
It was everything,
Mm.
Factory X, we do it all. So, we had hard sparring, we had technical sparring, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, everything. So, wall work, we hit every spot, and he was one of the main guys I was working with. I was one of the main guys he was working with. So, yeah, I think that's a good thing, but I also think it'll be interesting how you approach a fight,
Mm.
because the unknown is some of the scariest. So when there's a little bit of known, I think the fight maybe goes a little different.
So when you look at your position and you look at this fight, you mentioned there about your back being against the wall. Is this fight just a case of getting back on the horse and getting back in the win column, or is there anything else that you're trying to accomplish or get out of March 1st?
Yeah, I think I'm a finisher. All my fights, I try to finish.
Mm.
I've lost fights trying to finish, so I think I always want to find a finish. It's just not over hunting it, right? I
Mm.
think I'll find it if I just go in there to fight. Once you start hunting it, then it's hard to find. I've never got a finish that I was like, this is the punch. It's gonna, you know what I mean? So
Mm.
I think just being patient and yeah, the win is the ultimate goal, but obviously I want to get him out of there. And we're high up on the card. We're co-main, so there's a good opportunity to get a bonus there. And I'm always bonus hunting, and yeah, but that's not the forefront of my mind when I'm going in there. I just follow the game plan, have fun, as much fun as you can, and I think if I do those things, then the rest will work itself out.
You mentioned some of the hate that Sean Strickland got online this week after his fight against Dricus Du Plessis. What did you make of the main event of UFC 312 and for the middleweight title?
I think you got two of the best guys in the world, and sometimes that's not the most exciting thing.
Mm.
Like it happened with Izzy for many fights, right? They're like, this guy's boring, but they just don't understand the sport. Like at the end of the day, people want to see blood, and that's what they think the sport is. And um, unfortunately, if you go have a technical fight and you're cautious of protecting yourself, I don't think Sean does himself any favors with the way he talks.
Mm.
So I mean, there's that piece of it, but at the end of the day, like I said, none of these people have done the sport. They've never even done training. They don't understand that your brain. They're like, why? Because I've watched fights with some of my friends, right? And they're like, why doesn't he just do this? Why doesn't he just do that? And I'm like,
Mm.
your brain isn't operating like my brain and your brain is watching this when
Mm.
you're in there.
Yeah.
Your brain is 100% in survival mode, and to fight, you have to to fight climbing out of the cage and running out of there. You're fighting yourself, because what is your brain's like ultimate goal? We have to survive. We have to keep
Yeah.
ourselves alive. You're actively putting yourself in a situation that endangers that. And so you're fighting everything in your body, self-preservation, and then also trying to perform on top of that. But the people who have never fought, they don't understand that. So it's hard to explain to them that, like, yeah, man, he could just go forward, but there's a good chance he'll get knocked out or get hit hard or get his nose broken or whatever, you know. Now when you talk and say like, oh, I'm gonna go die and I'll kill this guy in the process, yeah, people are gonna expect you to go do that.
Mm.
Um, but it is what it is. The fans in this sport, man, we've talked about this, I feel like almost every interview. The fans in
We
this
have, yeah.
sport are unforgiving. It's very much what have you done for me lately? Like people forget that, Sean went and beat Imavov on like 4 days notice, right? Imavov is on a tear. He's killing everybody. They forget that he fought that Abus Magomedov kid that nobody wanted to fight and absolutely walked him down and beat his ass. They forget that he went and finished Izzy, or
Yeah.
didn't finish Izzy, but beat Izzy in a dominant fashion on 6 weeks notice. Like no one remembers those things. They're just like, man, his last two fights were kind of tick for tack. Like, bro, he he's a gangster. And I'm not a Sean Strickland fan. I don't really like Sean Strickland to be honest, but he's a gangster, bro. He shows up. He's the guy that the UFC will call when they need someone to get the job done, and he more times than not is very successful. I mean, the only people he's lost to are Dricus twice, and he's
Mm.
beat everybody else. So, the hate he's getting is partly due to his own words and talking, but also partly because the fans just don't understand the sport.
Where do you sit on the Dricus Du Plessis line of kind of fan or hater? Are you somebody who appreciates his funky style, or are you somebody who's more on the other side who doesn't quite understand how he has as much success as he does?
Uh, I think he's a gamer. Like he is a winner and he's a gamer, and the rest doesn't really matter.
Mm.
Um, I think he's entertaining to watch. Like some of the stuff he does, you're like, what the hell? Like that was completely technically incorrect, but it doesn't matter because he's a
Yeah.
winner and he's a gamer and showing up on fight night. I think he is the definition of like at the end of the day, it doesn't. Most of the shit doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Like it sounds stupid to say, but it doesn't matter if you throw your jab perfect. Doesn't matter if you have the perfect technique because some guys are just down to fight. Like Dricus will fight you in a 7-Eleven parking lot just like he'd fight you in the cage
Mm.
and I think he's down to fight always. And yeah, I'm not a hater. I wouldn't say I'm a fan either. Like I think he's kind of a weird dude. Uh like I don't know, but yeah, I mean he's super successful. It's cool to watch someone just win and not give like he don't give a fuck, bro. He don't care what
Mm.
anybody says. He don't care that people say he's goofy or his technique's weird. He's like, I'm beating all your asses, so come do something about it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And I think the other thing is I think the dude is like ungodly strong.
Yes.
Like that's one thing because I'm like when I watch him and he gets a hold of people, I'm like that shouldn't work, but he just makes it work. I think he has crazy power in his hands, and I think he's ungodly strong. You know what he is? He's like a way better version of, or not even way better, but he's a better version of Derek Brunson to me.
Mm. I can
Like
see
Derek
that. I can see
Brunson
that. Yeah.
would just do like some weird shit and he'd touch you with his hands, he'd put you down. Or he could just grab a hold of you and his wrestling entries looked terrible, his timing looked awful, but he would get you down. Like so it wasn't anything that he was doing that was technically amazing, but he was top 5 in the world and beating all these dudes and you're like, how is this happening?
Mm.
You know what I mean? So and Dricus I think is a little bit of a better athlete and a little step up from that, but it's not that far off. If you go back and watch Derek Brunson, you're like, dude, the way this guy moves, like every time he gets hit, you're like, oh, he's unconscious, but he's not, right? Or he's like, oh, he's really tired, but he's not. Like, I find a lot of similarities between those two guys for sure.
That's probably what made their fight so weird, if you remember, when they were both gassed out super early.
Oh yeah. They both and like the fight ended with like 0 seconds in
Yeah.
the or whatever. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, I
It was
forgot those two fought, but yeah, that was a goofy fight for sure.
well, last question from me, and thank you so much for your time. Give me a walkthrough of what March 1st looks like in a perfect world. From morning to night, how do you envisage your fight day going?
Yeah, I fight later in the day, so I always have a hard time eating on fight day. So hopefully can put some food down and just be easy and not make it a big deal until it needs to be a big deal. Um, and then once we get to the fight, I think just letting the fight happen on my timing. I don't need to rush anything. I've kind of taken this new approach where it's a 15 1-minute fights. If you win 8 of those 1 minutes, you're gonna win the fight. And then the fight only needs to happen when I want it to happen, right? I'm faster, I'm more athletic. So if I don't want to engage, I don't have to engage, and that's probably been a problem because I feel like my whole career I'm like, okay, nothing's happening, I gotta go. So nothing's happening, I gotta go, and I don't feel that way anymore. And then afterwards, yeah, man, just something low key with the boys, and my wife will be in town, and celebrate, and this is the last fight on my deal, so get a new contract, and yeah, ride off into the sunset, and then maybe take another break, and not. I'm never probably gonna fight like I used to. I think last time I did like 6 fights in like 14 months. Like I'm probably never gonna be on that clip again. Um, but then yeah, maybe be looking towards like the fall and get another fight, and then in the meantime be cornering my boys, Youssef and Dustin and some of my guys. So uh, that's the perfect night, and I think it's definitely achievable. So I'm excited for it. I'm excited to get back in there and um, feel alive again. That's important. That's a big part of fighting. So it'll be good, man. I appreciate you, and next time we'll have less time in between.
I love it. Well, Cody, thank you so much for your time as always. Always good to see you back in action. Have a great and safe rest of camp and best of luck for the next fight.
Appreciate you, brother.